Hey everyone, welcome back. Hope you guys are having a great weekend. It's Sunday night, and I think most of you guys are gonna be watching like football right now going on as the playoffs are kind of getting into full swing. A couple of things I wanted to note here is this isn't obviously a stream. We're going back to kind of the regular video formats that I've been doing in the past. Reason for that is I've seen the analytics from YouTube, and it looks like I don't know if it's YouTube or the advertisers don't like the streams. So that obviously is hitting the bottom line. So I'm reevaluating how I'm going to do those going forward. I'm going to try to still do maybe 1 or 2 streams a week to see how those go. That way we can interact. Obviously, I love having you guys on, and we do the questions at the end of the stream usually. Those are always fun. So I still want to do that, but we may bring it down a little bit or tone it down a little bit with the live streams. Whether we do those on Fridays or over the weekends, I'll keep you guys posted what the schedule is going to be going forward. But right now we're going back to the regular videos, and we'll see how things progress going forward. I've also noticed a dip in subscribers since I started going with the live streams. So that's kind of the reason for it. Okay. Other than that, we'll take a look at what's going on with Bitcoin. We'll also take a look at Google potentially allowing Bitcoin and crypto advertising again on the platform, possibly starting tomorrow, what that actually means. We'll also take a look at some Google trends for Bitcoin, Bitcoin price and Bitcoin ETFs, how those are matching up right now. Then we'll look at the Bitcoin, what's going on with it. We'll also take a look at some data as far as how the network hash rate impacts, network hash rate, the growth in network hash rate, how that also kind of correlates to Bitcoin price going up in value as well. So we'll take a look at that. And then finally get into the Bitcoin versus the Bitcoin miners for this past week. And we'll call it a day, okay? So as always, you guys know the drill here. This is not financial advice for entertainment only. Please do your own research and invest in finding coins and companies for full disclosure. And as always, if you guys enjoy this type of content, hit the like button, subscribe, helps me out tremendously. And let's get into our first story here, which is going to be on Bitcoin ETFs being Google possibly allowing ads again. So Bitcoin ETF ads may appear on Google starting Monday, community speculates. And here's some things that we do have to talk about. I think if they do allow it, obviously that would give it a little bit more exposure. But when we look at the Bitcoin Google trends here in a second, you'll see that it's maybe not all that it's cracked up to be here. So going down here, we can see here, however, Google vaguely refers to the allowed products as cryptocurrency coin trust. And when the only coin trust that we really had was the BTC coin trust, but they've kind of transitioned over into their own spot Bitcoin ETF here recently. And then previously buying GBTC shares on the primary market was only available to accredited investors and subject to a 6-month holding period, right? Accredited investors must have a net worth of 1 million or more than 200,000 in earned income over the previous 2 years. These rules are in place to protect potential investors with limited knowledge from risky investments that may result in them losing their funds. Basically, they're talking about dumb money, right? However, the spot Bitcoin ETFs are available to the general public in the United States. They are regulated under the Securities Act of 1933, making them a potential safer option for Google to consider in advertising, which I think might be a good thing. Obviously, the more, what's the word I'm looking for? Advertising, the more that's in front of people's eyes, people will start to learn more about Bitcoin ETFs, the having events, things like that. So I think that might be a good thing going forward. And when we look at the Google trends here, I put in 3 basic search topics. So Bitcoin ETF, Bitcoin halving, and then Bitcoin price. So actually 4, on that one. And you can see here that right around January 11th, 11th is when we really peaked on it. You can see here that the Bitcoin search terms was 100, right? So that's really good. That was pretty high at that point. Bitcoin price was 43. Bitcoin ETF was at 29. So not still as high as Bitcoin itself. So people are still looking at Bitcoin as the major play here, I think, on that one. But it's kind of interesting to take a look at how that has obviously risen into the ETF hype that we've seen. And then it's kind of come back down a little bit here over the last, 2 weeks now or something like that. But the interesting part here that I saw was District of Columbia. If you look at the data here, nowhere else did I really see a huge spike in Bitcoin halving queries other than in District of Columbia. So I'm wondering if the politicians are having their staff look into what's going on with Bitcoin. Maybe they're trying to get a little bit educated with what's going on. And that might not be a bad thing, actually. I think the more educated they are, the more likely they are maybe to support it. But there's always 2 sides of the coin here. So we'll have to see on that one, which way they're floating it. But I just thought this was kind of interesting to take a look at how that has obviously the search terms have performed over the last basically 30 days or so for these 4 topics here. Okay, so that's it for that. Let's get into Bitcoin here really quick, see what's going on with that. And I'll show you guys another chart which kind of looks at the last 5 years of the network hash rate growing and the Bitcoin price as well. We'll talk about that as well. But right now, Bitcoin is up slightly on the day. It obviously closed the day in the red a little bit here, was down just barely 0.22% on the day. We reached a high of 42,839, and then we came down to a low of 41,617. We closed at 42,034. So that was pretty good. But interesting part is here we went up to the 50-day moving average, touched it, and basically fell back down. So that might be a resistance right now. We might be doing a little wedge here going forward where it might bounce between it until we start to pop out. So it might be a couple more days. We'll see how long that takes. Okay, other than that, obviously miners weren't trading today. We'll take a look at those tomorrow a little bit, see if there's anything interesting happening. We talked about that in Friday's video. And then the reason I wanted to take a look at the next chart here, which looks at the network hash rate growth of Bitcoin, and this is on a linear scale, along with Bitcoin price. Over the last 5 years, is there, some of you might have joined the Twitter Spaces conversation that we had that was set up by Bitcoin Mining Stock Guy. So big shout out to him for setting that all up. That was fun. We had a lot of people on there. We had Sue. We had Romain from Saddle on there as well. We had, I'm going to be forgetting a lot of people, but we had a lot of great people on there. So that was a lot of fun. And I think we might be doing those on like Sundays going forward, but we'll see. I think we're planning on for the next Sunday as well, possibly around like noon or something like that. So those are always fun. You guys can always join in on those. But there was a question as far as network hash rate, and with network hash rate going up, does that also entail Bitcoin price going up in value? And looking back at the 5 years here, I can't get the data for all. If I look at all, it looks all funky here. You can see that the network hash rate obviously has gone tremendously up high because of the percentage gains. But if you look at a shorter period, I think it does kind of match up with it. We do have some, what's the word I'm looking for? Some diversion from it. When we obviously go into bull runs where we get FOMO and Bitcoin price. And you can see that here where we were getting into it obviously in 2021. And then obviously we had the dip here in right around, when was that? Around May, when China banned Bitcoin mining in that country. We had a lot of hash rate come off at that time. And then came back up. Obviously, same thing with the Bitcoin price. It's rebounded. We had a double top pretty much where Bitcoin peaked at 69,000 right around November sometime at that point. And then consistently, we've seen here the network hash rate continue to go up. Bitcoin, obviously, going into the bear market, has fallen below the network hash rate line, but it is obviously coming back up here as the network hash rate has continued to go up. And we are seeing some similarities here when we see a dip in the network hash rate. We see the price of Bitcoin also go down. When it continues to go back up, we see that Bitcoin price goes up as well. So there is some, I think, similarities between the two, the way they interact. And obviously, that is mainly because of I think that it is driven by, one, efficiencies of the network, right? Older miners, less efficient miners are getting unplugged, newer miners that are coming online, and then we're having that. Just a couple of years ago, we were, the best miners were 100 terahash. Now the best miners are 200 terahash, and that's within only basically like 2-3 years at that time. So not a lot of time, but a huge improvement in efficiencies during that time. And I think that's driving it all forward. Obviously, the halvings event also play into this as well. So it's kind of interesting to take a look at. I thought this was kind of fun to share with you guys just to see what's going on here with it. But yeah, that's about it for that one. Let me know what you guys think of this. And then let's get into the miners here for the past week. And we'll call it a day. So it should be a pretty easy video. So miners, this first chart that we look at is obviously where the miners are from their 52-week lows on the green bars. And then from the 52-week highs, how far they are away from the 52-week highs right now on the red bars. Some things to note here. Core obviously went out of chapter bankruptcy here this past week. They also got listed on the NASDAQ. For that reason, their data is missing here because they changed symbols back to Core Z instead of Core ZQ or something like that. So I'm missing some data on them for the last 12 weeks and basically going back the past year or so. So that's why they're only showing 12% up here. But previously, they were like the top one up 1,200%, something like that. Might have come down a little bit here now recently, but that's kind of where that's been. So that data is a little bit delayed, I guess you could say, or maybe a little bit flawed, I guess, because the sticker changed on it. So that's kind of what we're dealing with here. But Mawson, obviously, followed by Core, would be the second spot here with 465% being up. And I've talked about this before. I have absolutely no idea why Core, for whatever, not Core, but Mawson, for whatever reason, is pumping like this. Either people are thinking that they're going to be a buyout play going forward and they're just kind of trying to front run it, or they're just looking at the miners that have been the most kind of beaten down, I guess you could say, in stock price since the bear market has transformed, and they're looking at those that are relatively inexpensive compared to other ones, but they're not looking into all the other things that are really important in that. What is their debt? What is their growth? What is their efficiencies? What is their uptime? They're not taking that into consideration, I think. Same thing for Sphere 3D, same thing, right? Second spot here based on this is at 295%. And then the other ones here are pretty much like the top miners here: CleanSpark, Marathon, Bitfarms. TeraWolf is a little questionable with the debt. We'll see how they deal with that. BitDigital as well. And then you got BitDeer, Argo, and the rest of the gang here. But Bitcoin being up only 113% here in the last 52 weeks from its bottom to its top. And the rest of the miners obviously have been doing a lot better than that. A couple miners that have been underperforming it, however, are Hive, Hut8, and now Core. But as I've talked about Core, there's a reason for it. But Hut8, obviously, with the report that came in from J Capital, that dropped the stock tremendously. Was down like 25% on one day or something like that. So that definitely beat it down quite a bit. So those two are the ones that have been underperforming Bitcoin here in the last, I guess you could say, 52 weeks. And then as far as how the miners are, how far they are away from their 52-week highs, we see that Bitcoin is only 14% away from its 52-week highs, while everybody else is around 40%, 44, 34. In the 40s, usually somewhere in the 50s. Hut is at like 62% right now. So that's definitely, we saw a lot of miners here peak their 52-week highs recently within the last, I want to say 3 weeks or so, somewhere around there. So that's kind of what we're dealing with. Then when we look at the weekly performance here on the miners for past week, we can see here that Bitcoin at that point was only up 0.48%, and I track it from Friday to Friday. So kind of the same way that the miners trade on those days. And then usually Bitcoin's weekly is on the end of Sunday, but I track it Friday to Friday just to make it fair with the miners. Looking at it here, we can see the DigiHost obviously up tremendously, 26.95%, followed by TeraWolf, Hut8 obviously kind of bouncing here as well. Sphere being up 22%, Argo being up 21%. Those are the ones that are kind of the smaller miners, except for maybe Hut8 and TeraWolf. But you got DigiHost, Sphere 3D, and Argo are the ones that are smaller here. So, like I said, might be just some people looking at the ones that are more undervalued potentially or lower in price compared to everybody else, and that's what they're going in for right now. Then you got BitDeer up 18%, CleanSpark at 16%, DMG at 13%, Bitfarms at 11% up, BitDigital 10%, Marathon up 10%, Riot 10%, and Hive up 5%, Mawson up 4%, and Cypher up 2%. And then Iris was actually down 1.16%, and Core, obviously I don't have the data on it for the new ticker symbol on that one. If we look at the 4 weeks, we get a different chart here. So if you go back 4 weeks in on these, we can see here that Bitcoin is down only 5.31%, whereas some of the miners are down, like Iris is down 31%, Argo down 34%, Hut is down 28%, and the rest are kind of in their 20s and teens, and we got only looks like two here that are down less than 10, which is BitDeer down 6.29 and DigiHost only down 7.25. So you can see how that's worked out in the 4 weeks, and then the 8 weeks. Another different story here. We can see that at this point, Mawson, for whatever reason, like I said, is up 102%. Kind of reminds me of GameStop. I've said this before. Bitcoin's actually down 5.32% from 8 weeks ago. Iris is down 26. What else do we have here that's up? Sphere 3D up 46, right? Another small miner for whatever reason. That one's being bumped up. DMG up 33%. Who else do we have here that's kind of up there? That's about it. Some are up in the 20s. Then we got some guys that are down 20%, like Riot is down 28%. Hive is down 20%. BitDigital down 20%. CleanSpark down 22%. Hut down 17%. So interesting to look at that as well. And then from 12 weeks ago, we can see here that at this point, Bitcoin is up 12.07% from then. And then you have a lot of miners that are more in the green here side of things compared to than they were just 8 weeks ago. But you can still see that Hut8 is still down from 12 weeks ago, down 22%. So they obviously merged within that time frame with USBTC. They kind of drove the stock down. They also had a reverse split on that and the combination and everything else that's played into it. And then the news that they had from the short sellers at J Capital, that knocked the price down even more. So I think they have a ways to possibly get back up. But the ones that have done the best, like I said, Mawson, for whatever reason, is up 341% from 12 weeks ago. That's outperforming everybody here for absolutely no reason that I can think of. And then you got Sphere up 130% as well. Another one of those that's really small. The ones that I have concern with going forward into the halving event are actually like Sphere 3D, Mawson, Argo, and those have done pretty good here so far. But other than that, we got CleanSpark up 114%. Who else? I think that's about it. for the most part, they're in the 30s, 40s, somewhere in the 80s. Like Marathon's up 85%, Bitfarm's 84%. So that's the way things have stacked up. It's always nice to see how those all compare to each other on just a couple weeks basis. And then you can see down here, we had a pretty nice green week here in miners overall. Bitcoin's up as well, but we only had one miner that was down. But prior to that, we had pretty much like 2 to 3, maybe even 4 weeks that we were in the red. And usually we get that every once in a while. We'll just get kind of a cleansing, I guess you could say. And then after that, things pick up here. So we've seen this before here as well, where we were in the red, and then we had a nice rally in the miners going into October, November, and then in December as well. And that's kind of what we're thinking maybe might happen, but I don't know. We got the halving event coming up that might also have an impact on the miners themselves going forward. But we'll keep an eye on it and we'll see what happens there. And yeah, well, I think we'll just leave it at that. And then let's see here. What do we got? There we go. Okay. So as always, Patreon members get access to all my spreadsheets on Patreon. We also have a Discord channel there that's private to us. So that's part of the membership to Patreon. And then you also we get to communicate there. That's fun there. We had a lot of great conversations happening there as well. And the link is down in the description for that. And I think we will close it off at that. But yeah, we'll see what happens going forward. We'll see what happens later on this week with Bitcoin. I think the month is ending here in a couple of days. So we'll start getting some updates from the miners as well, happening probably, Thursday, Friday. We start getting, we're in the 1st of February, I think. I have to look at it. But somewhere around there, we're going to start getting some updates. We'll cover those when they happen. We'll see how the miners did. Obviously, this month in January, they had a fantastic December. It doesn't look like January is going to be anywhere near as good potentially for some of these miners as it was in December. Obviously, the transaction fees have also come down on a lot of them. So we'll see how those play out. We also have CleanSpark reporting, I think, the 8th on their Q1 numbers, which is Q4 for us. But we'll see how that played out, see if they're actually EPS positive or negative. So we'll cover all that. So we got a lot of stuff going on here, obviously, in the next week or so. So we'll get some more updates for you guys. And then obviously we'll do a Q&A, I don't know, Friday, Saturday, or something like that. I'll let you guys know. All right. But I do appreciate you guys watching very much. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button, subscribe. It helps me out tremendously. And I hope you guys have a wonderful afternoon or evening, actually, right now. It's about 8 o'clock right now when I'm recording this. So you guys were watching this at night. So thank you so much. I'll see you next one.